I am Marwan Cameron, and this is the Conduit. All right, everyone. It is January 27th. It's Monday, cold in Kitsap County, 25 degrees. Oh, this temperature is deadly out there. So please take care of yourself, be safe. And as I was mentioning earlier, if you know someone who needs to shelter, please give our office a call. Severe weather shelters are open. And as you can see, they started opening in December 4th. But there are two locations. You can give us our office a call and we will pick you up and get the folks there. The rides are free to the severe weather shelters. Just give us a call at 360-373-3000 before 7 p.m. on activation day. It will be active all this week, I would surmise. Again, you can also subscribe for shelter activation notifications. Just text Kitsap SWS to 898-211. Standard message and data rates apply. And also right now, because it is so cold, there is a day center that has been created at the Kitsap Pavilion. So if you need to be inside, there's no reason for you to be outside, wandering around, walking around. Just give us a call. Tell someone to give us a call. Let us pick you up, get you to the shelter. And then when it closes, we'll take you back to where you want to go. All right. So, very important note to put out there. Of course, I am with the executive director of the Bremerton Housing Authority, Jill Stanton. How are you doing today, Jill?
I'm good. I'm staying warm inside.
Absolutely. You know, the fire isn't just for show. It actually does give off heat also. So, that's kind of the nice thing. I can have the ambiance of the fire without the heat, or I can have the heat also. So I've got both today.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So, we've I can't remember. I think we started, doing these podcasts where housing was involved like in the summertime. So it's been very close to 6 months. And so what I wanted to do today, since this was the last podcast of 2021, is just kind of reflect on the year from the executive director's perspective for Bremerton Housing Authority and talk about 2022 and just kind of get your thoughts there and the direction in which we're going with all the things that we're kind of facing. That sound pretty good?
That sounds great. Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Well, why don't we start off with just kind of recapping the last year here?
Yeah, so well, as you know, this was my first year in Bremerton as I started actually January 25th, 2021. So as I think about the year ending, well, I should start off by saying I started the Christmas weekend and just this morning ended by reading the book called Breakfast at Sally's. And I'm sure that that's a local book that everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people in these nonprofits know about. And so I couldn't put the book down. So I stayed up late both nights, and then I got up early this morning to finish it. And, a couple things, that struck me. Obviously, it's a book about a man who was homeless in Bremerton for about a year and really credits the community of Bremerton, including the homeless people, with his getting through that year and getting over, the barriers and the challenges to being housed. He ended up living in the bottom of a church, the basement of a church for, I believe, 9 months, I believe it was in the book. I'll have to go back. But anyways, his story was quite interesting. And one of the things that one of the chapters that I read this morning, it talked about another family, because he told several stories, and it talked about a family that was living, mom and her two sons living in a storage shed, and didn't go too much into detail. But one of the parts of that story was that the woman was asked where she was at on the housing list. And she said, "Oh, you mean the housing authority waiting list?" And they said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I was number 5,700 and something a few months ago, and now I'm still 5,700 and something." And she had stopped by the housing authority to ask where she was on the list. And she was answered with, well, we changed our policy, and so we're no longer going to tell people where they're at on the list. You have to go look it up on your computer on the internet. And she was saying in the book, I don't even have a computer. And the woman is, living in a storage shed with her two young boys, working at a hotel that she was scared was going to shut down at any moment, and getting 25 hours a week, but that was really all she could do between the bus ride and getting her kids to school and getting back in time. And so it was just a hard life. And then it's disturbing to me to hear, well, the housing authority changed a policy, so now we're not going to tell you where you're at on the wait list. We're going to make you go look it up because we don't have time for that. It's like, I when I came here, I think one of the things that happened right away was a change in leadership. Of course, I was a big change, and then under me, we've had a couple changes as well. And I think with that, the kind of the people that have been in place for a while, you do get to this, where you're just doing, and I'm the same way, you're just doing your job every day. It's hard. It's hard to sometimes even remember that we're dealing with people who are really struggling. And I think when Kurt Wiest, he was the executive director before me, when he found out that I was coming on, he had written me a very nice letter saying he was so happy. He felt that the housing authority needed a fresh perspective and needed a different direction. And there was nothing wrong, but he just needed to move on, and the housing authority needed to move on. And it was really nice for me because it gave me permission to just do that, and to kind of see things from a new perspective and not feel like I was throwing anybody under the bus if we were going to make big changes. Although I will say, Kurt did tell me I had permission to throw him under the bus if I ever had to.
That sounds like Kurt.
Yeah, which I told him I will only do that if it's an extreme emergency. But it really, I've had a lot of freedom, and the board has given me a lot of freedom to make these kind of significant changes. And one of those things that we've focused on is customer service, and really ensuring that when we are called upon by our customers to provide information, that we are dedicated and committed to doing that, even when it's inconvenient, right? And I think the staff know that if somebody calls me, I'm going to answer my phone if I can. And if I can't, I'm going to call them back just as soon as I can, because it's so important that people get what they need from us. And we're kind of holding all the cards for them. So just in thinking about the year ending, I think that's probably what I'm most, I guess, happy and fulfilled about, is just that I feel like our agency is moving in a direction to where we're going to give really great customer service and remember that we're dealing with people and they're not just a number on a list.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, because we talked about doing this last week, and I didn't really take any time to be reflective or for this show. One thing that you don't know is on New Year's. So I don't celebrate New Year's in the traditional sense. What I do is I go into G2 after everyone else is gone, and I move everything out and I hand mop the floor on my hands and knees. And then I do a reflection at the end of the night, kind of going into midnight. Whenever I finish it, it takes a long time to do. Um, but for me, that's a really cathartic way to reflect on the year, and then look into the new year kind of with a clean, fresh start, and ready to go. And just I haven't even started preparing those thoughts because that's coming up here in a few days. I got about 4 days before I'm in there doing that. uh and it's just the numbers are continuing to grow. And I was reflecting on this during the health podcast earlier today. There's so many people that are impacted that don't meet the typical stereotypical um you know thought of what homelessness looks like, what the person looks like. Oh, they're alcoholic, they're a drug addict, they're lazy, they're not trying. No, we're talking about working class families and individuals, and even some middle class folks that have had some serious tragedies befall them and find themselves in this situation and scenario. You're seeing more and more cars and Walmart parking lots and on the street and everywhere else. You're seeing storage units being erected all over everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's because there's a need. That means that people need to store their belongings because they don't have the room to keep them there anymore, right? And so we can look at all these things anecdotally and start putting them together, but we often, because it's like, bringing, it's a, watch pot never boils, right? We go and drive past these things every day, and then it's there, and it's full, and it's like, oh, there's 300 units, storage units here, and 200 units there, and um, and we don't want to see the homelessness here, and so we push it into different places, into the woods in here, and dislocate. But it's continuing to grow, and it's just so tragic. And seeing being a buy-in for with the county and KCR, and just seeing how many people needed eviction assistance, and where the wait list currently is, and knowing what that need is just how much of it is its own pandemic, its own crisis. Without COVID, it was already here for so many of our citizens, and it's going to continue to be. One of the big things that I was thinking about, Jill, was I really kind of broke down COVID into three stages. This stage now, where we have 819,000 dead, and continuing to die at a clip of 1,400 per day. We don't know if Omicron is the last. But phase two, I think, is going to be far worse, because you have so many folks that have been orphaned. You have so many people that have lost their patriarch or their matriarch, the person that was the glue or the breadwinner of the family. And then we have long haul COVID, and we don't know how that's going to affect people's health, the scarring, and the things with the lungs, and other things. We just don't know. The economy, the loss of businesses, the loss of jobs, right? I mean, technology marches on, and so we're going to have a loss of jobs just because of innovation. But now companies have to do more with less, or do things more virtually, so they don't need as many people. And can we retrain? You were just talking about the book and saying, hey, she's coming in to find her place, but I don't have a computer, right? I wouldn't even know the first on how to go and access that information if I had a device to access it with. So
Right.
that's an issue. But this is all about, folks, how are they going to survive? What is their quality of life going to look like? Mental health, domestic violence, everything is up, right? Drug addiction, all of these things. And so that the second phase of COVID, I think, is going to be far more pernicious and dangerous. Um, and it's really going to impact us for a very long time, for years to come, until we get to that third phase where we're really kind of on the other side of it. And I think we can look at the 2008 housing crisis, and see what that looks like. There's so many families that haven't recovered from that, right? Maybe they experienced home ownership, and they won't experience it again, right? I mean, I actually fall into that category. I was a homeowner back then, and I'm not now. So I was one of those people that were caught up in that. And so it's unfortunate. And so I guess my reflection is this has been a really tough year. This has been very illuminating for me, and for my organization, to see how much work is in there, and wanting to work as hard as possible to save and help as many people as you can, but at the same time understanding that you can only go as fast can go, right? We're still looking for housing for folks, because the housing market is so tight, and there's just so many different challenges that we're finding out more and more about as we do more advocacy work and more case management, and what there is to do in 2022, which we'll start to get into now. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the devastation of this pandemic, the worst of it is probably yet to be seen, and it'll be over a very long period, which in some ways, that causes it to, in a sense, the hardest hit maybe never us seeing it, right? Because it's not going to be this panic mode, but it's going to be over time. And I think, in that book I was reading, it just didn't happen overnight that people's lives fell apart. It just happened over time, a series of events. One thing happens, another thing happens, depression sets in, right? And you're homeless. And it's like, it also just reflects how housing is not just a roof over your head. I mean, it really is that kind of foundational piece. If you don't have that, you could have, you could be, you may still be going and getting medical help, maybe not, but maybe, and yet you don't have this thing that provides safety and warmth. And so, it is a huge concern, and I think it is a multi-year recovery period, and it's going to be worse for those that are the most vulnerable. And so I think going into 2022 with an attitude of, well, the pandemic, I think, will eventually be over. I think the fear of the pandemic will subside over time. I mean, people will grow tired of being having their lives turned upside down, but the real impact will be those loss of jobs, will be, well, what happens to the people that whose incomes have been forever taken away or impacted so severely that they can't afford the life that they had before, and how are we going to really deal with that as a society, I think, is a big, huge question. And I think housing is at the forefront of that. I really feel like that has to get solved.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to show this is from the county. This is their 2020 Kitsap County point in time count overview. And so what the point in time count is they'll, select a day and then they'll go out and try to count all the homeless, as I understand it. Does that sound um,
Hmm.
those who are experiencing homelessness? And then they look at it, transitional housing, emergency shelters, winter shelters, unsheltered, and then they look at those totals. And here you can see, just looking at the numbers from 2012, the total count was 325 in 2012, and here in 2020 is 533. Now, again, looking at all of this, you can see there's a kind of a steady increase, kind of follows a standard little kind of graph, but it is steadily creeping upward, right? And this, we don't know what it was for 2021 yet, as they won't do that count. And or have they? Did they do a count this year?
I don't think they did a count this year.
It's every other year. Is that how you?
It used to, well, where I came from over in King County and Snohomish County, we did it every year. But I think that this year they skipped just because of the pandemic.
Gotcha. Okay, so typically every year we won't have numbers for 2021. I think that's unfortunate. I get it because we haven't experienced the pandemic during all the times that this was recorded. So, I mean, you got to stay safe. But then looking, this is a pretty distributed here. A lot of homelessness in Port Orchard, which was a little surprising to me, in Poulsbo and Bainbridge Island, I think surprises some folks. And even Silverdale, right? Because this seems to be, a lot of businesses and not as many residential, but still homelessness nonetheless. Um, and then the causes of homelessness, I think, is really important for us to look at because, again, when we're looking at it from the outside and there are folks that are concerned about property values or safety or whatever the case may be. Typically 54%, right? The majority eviction from a loss of housing, right? Or health issues or mental health issues. Substance abuse is way down here at 24, right? This is fifth on the list. And so I think that's really important to look at. Job loss and unable to work, 48%. Family conflict, right? And this could be domestic violence or issues with the kids and in the house and needing to separate, whatever the case may be. And so in here, 22% discharge from systems, which could be jail or prison or some other places. But here, these are the lowest, right? And so I think it's important for us in 22 to make sure that we really get across the causes of homelessness because everyone gets painted into this picture, but the majority of people are, hey, I got evicted, I lost my housing, right? The eviction moratorium is over. This is going to skyrocket. Mental health and health issues. Hey, we all survived COVID, so we all are going to be experiencing this, and some people more so than others. And if you already had health issues before COVID, or if you were experiencing mental health issues, this is just going to become, exponential. job loss, unable to work. We were talking about innovation and where are you going to work? Can you work in a place and earn a living in a place where you can physically be safe in COVID? Um, and so I think it's important to kind of talk about this and show these things here. Uh, 22, there's a lot. I'm if I talk about the glass half full, the things that I'm excited about for 22 is kind of what's happened here in the last 6 months with the Bremerton Housing Authority and yourself, with Matt Garrett and KCR. I met with the new executive director of KCR, Anthony. So shout out to him. We went to lunch and got to know each other. So that was awesome. Seems like a really cool guy. And this is very, very different that than the experience that I have experienced over the almost 4 years that G2 has been in existence. You know, we had the coalition of care or continuum of care, and we'd all get together once a month or however often we got together and shared information. You know, COVID, made us, go into a space of Zoom meetings and virtual meetings and this and that. But there is typically an executive director doesn't make themselves available every Monday for an hour or so to talk about, current issues. This is different, right? I mean, this is very different. The head of housing doesn't come on to a podcast every Monday with a small nonprofit and have conversations, right? You don't have folks that are all coming in and with new blood and new ideas and saying, hey, how can we innovate? How can we do things different? Who do we need to listen to? Let's listen to the customers. Let's listen to the clients, and let's see what we can do and make those changes. It feels different, and therefore, I've seen it bear fruit where folks are trying to navigate these systems and situations, and it's like they've got teams now that are around them, and so they're not going and saying, hey, well, I talked to Stephanie at G2 and she said this, and then I talked to this person at BHA and they're trying to recreate the story. It's like, no, we're all on the phone at the same time. We all got the same story. This is what we can do. This is how we can help. And that's really what it takes. So my glass half full for 22 is, man, we are doing things different at the end of 21 and going into 22 with a tremendous amount of collaboration in spirit and silo busting and building on the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we bring to bear to the table and really finding synergies on how to work together. So that's how I think of 22.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It does feel, even for me, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, like we have done an amazing thing as a community and turned, these relationships into really powerful sources of ways to get things done. And yeah, I think KCR and Bremerton Housing Authority, we've kind of renewed our commitment to one another. There's been some ups and downs and miscommunications and everything, but at the end of the day, we're committed to working with each other with the urgency that we can't be the block that stops someone from getting housed, and we can't be the also kind of the judge and jury of who gets housed. Not that that was really the way I saw it before, but I think that now there's this more of a sense of urgency than maybe there was when I first got here, as to if we work together, we really can solve some of these things. I mean, we've seen it happen with Scarlet Road, where they got all of their emergency voucher people into housing. And so we know that it can happen, right? And what I'm excited about is that we even though it's not it's something I've complained about, that we have all of these underutilized vouchers, but it's quite a unique thing to have as well. Like we don't have to fight for more federal resources. We just have to use what we have, and they have to fund it, right? So we got to figure out a way to do this. And there was the county, I believe, put out a solicitation for people, for organizations to I guess to get people housed temporarily into hotel rooms and to provide services. Did you see that? There was two grants and they were a little bit different. And the Housing Authority is not going to apply for those grants because that's not really what we do. But when we saw that opportunity, what I loved is that the staff were like, well, can we help with this? And the way that we thought of to help with this is, well, what if if the organizations, they win the grant or they win this opportunity and they start actually working with people and housing people in hotel rooms, which is not a permanent solution, but it's a start. Can we then come in behind those and say, okay, you get through this program with this agency, and then you will just get a voucher. We won't even do the wait list. You'll get a voucher, because we've done that with littler programs and it's been very successful. And so we asked HUD, and they're like, we don't know why you couldn't. So we have a meeting next week to discuss how we can make this work. And it's just like that kind of thinking is what I'm excited about. And I've always said, our number one goal right now is to utilize all of these 600 vouchers however we can in Kitsap County and Mason County. And so people, the staff are really like, okay, well, we could do this, and we need this, and we buy these 5 houses. I just entered into purchase and sale agreements for the last 2 last week, so that was fun. And it's 5. It's not 500, which is what we need, right? But it's 5, and we've got a plan for another 8 units to hopefully start building. And I think you just have to, that creative thinking of, when the opportunity arises, how can we do it? Don't be like thinking we can't. We got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that is changing also, and I'm hoping that those that are, I would say, negatively impacted by homelessness from a property perspective or from a safety perspective can switch the way that they view it. We can look at it as not in my backyard, or I need to be safe, or it could be this or it could be that. But and for those of us that are also helping, right? Like, this is an issue where there's not enough units and there's not this and there's not that. But what do we do then? What is the solution? So we understand what the problem is. We understand what the issue is that has been stated ad nauseum. So now what do we do to go forward to house these folks, to make sure that folks are safe, right? Both those that are experiencing homelessness and folks in the community. What do we do to, keep people's, property values where they are, and have them continue to grow, and all that good stuff, right? That's a huge investment for them. Um, so switching that thought process to saying, hey, you know what? We are all in this together. This doesn't have to be a zero sum situation, and we need to come together and find solutions. And those solutions are going to come from, the team looking at a grant and saying, hey, you know what? We don't do this, but maybe we could do that. Let's ask HUD. And HUD's like, man, we never thought about that. We don't see why. That's where the solutions are going to come from, is having conversations, and people switching it and putting it on their, putting it on its head, and trying to find a way to solve it. So I really hope, that continues more in 22. I like what you said about, it's not always going to be smooth, right? There's issues, and we're going to have conflict, right? But how do you navigate through communication and conflict resolution and say, hey, I can vehemently disagree with what you did in this situation or in this case, but other than that, we are still in this together, and we're going to find a way to move forward while we still address the issue that's at hand. And it just changes things, like working with people in an honest way, and being authentic, right? I think is really powerful, and that's the way that we will begin to make more impacts on more families and individuals in this community. Not that we're going to end it, because it's not going to end next year, or in the next 2 or 3 years, unfortunately, but impact as many families as we can, more so than we're doing now.
Yeah, and also, pooling our resources. We don't, maybe like those 5 houses would have been really hard for the Bremerton Housing Authority to pull off on our own. But if the state gives us half the money, we have the other half, and we can have a return on our investment that'll give us the cash to do this again sometime. So it's looking at it from that perspective as well. I literally think, in fact, you need to introduce me to the executive director of the organization that wanted to build the shelter, and they went, yeah, because that, it's like somebody's wanting to do something, and yeah, it was pretty expensive, but if we all work together, maybe that's the next project that we can see happen, because that's like a big project. It's a Pendleton Place size deal. You know,
Right.
we already got some people putting that into place. I would love to know what they have, and what do we need to do. Maybe we can just go out and raise money. I don't know, but like, it's just cool that somebody wants to do this and they've laid the foundation for it. It's like, that's the hardest part sometimes, and now we just got to build it.
And that's a big deal. What you're saying there too is, a lot of times folks feel threatened when other people come in and they want to do something and they have ideas and they need resources, and you're not like, hey, you know what? Nope, we need these resources. We're already doing this. This is duplication of effort. It's like, no, let's meet. Let's see how we can collaborate and then try to do more. Again, that's the spirit that's needed. It's not a zero sum. We're all in this together. We're all trying to serve the communities and execute our missions. And we can do that best by collaborating, and supporting
Absolutely.
each other for sure. So I love that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I would have loved being a commissioner for you. Uh,
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were on the board for a while.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And,
we did just get two new commissioners. So
hey.
yeah, we have Miss Jamie Forsyth and Mr. Ryan Burton. He'll be starting in March. So yeah, we're excited about that, and they're both very excited to. So yeah, we're making changes. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Marwan. So this, I would have told you this, but I didn't realize it. So um, we got awarded 20 VASH vouchers, which are for veterans,
Oh.
and we already have, I think, 75, and we've utilized most of them. And but there's going to be some going into Pendleton Place, and then we got some going into the new village in Shelton and Mason County. But my understanding of these vouchers was that they don't really increase our count, but we just get to turn regular ones into veterans ones, and then they come with services from Veterans Affairs. But that's not right. That was not right information. Now, maybe that was for the past. These were 20 new vouchers that came with new money, like
Wow.
$180,000.
All right.
I was like, what is this? Notification came through. So, anyways, that's a big deal for our community too. And so next week, I asked the staff or anybody that wanted to volunteer to have a strategy session, because I don't want to just like, well, we'll just wait until this veteran comes up on our wait list and we'll have this and we'll use this. I don't want to do it that way. I want to be like proactive. Let's go out and see who needs these and see how we can fairly distribute them within HUD's rules, of course,
Mhm.
but not just simply wait for people to come to us. We have to be proactive. So I'm excited about that program.
Oh man, let me give you a horn there. Just all kinds of good news from BHA at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, good
Congratulations.
news. That was really exciting. So, and it's, it's needed. It's really needed here.
Yeah, it is. We do have a lot of veterans that experience homelessness here. Yeah, I mean we're in a military town for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal. I am definitely going to give you the final word of the year, but I can give you some good news too, because I don't know if I announced it last week on this show or not. I did Friday at Deborah's event, but Commerce has awarded G2 $130,000. So we are excited about that. Um,
Wow.
so with that, plus our 3-year group health grant that we have, we will be here for the next 3 years. As long as we have bodies to fill the mission, we will be doing the mission. So we're super excited about that and look forward to continuing to partner with BHA and yourself into the new year. So I'm gonna give you the final thought there, Jill.
Wow. Well, congratulations. See, it's just good news all around. It just starts going and flowing, and everybody just gets in on the party, right? That's,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. You guys needed that boost. So that's awesome. Last word, I'll just say, love this community. I really do. And I'm really looking forward to next year and being a part of solving these really hard issues. And I believe that we can do it. I truly, truly believe that we can solve this and help families. And it's going to be hard work, but I don't see failure as really an option for us, and we just have to count every win as they come. So I'm excited.
All right. Well, that's it. It is the end of 2021. We hope that you bring in the new year safely. For Jill Stanton, Executive Director of the Bremerton Housing Authority, I am Marwan Cameron of the Conduit and Gather Together, Grow Together. We will see you in 2022. All right,
Happy
everyone.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay. Bye, Mark.